and welcome to episode 2 of the Blues Focus podcast, casting every Monday on Spotify, Apple Music, and on YouTube. I'm Kieran, I'll be the host for today's episode, and joining me, I've got Gabriel and Dan. So, lads, we'll get straight into it with reaction to yesterday's result against Hull. Dan, what did you think?
I was baffled at the first half, to be honest. It's probably, I know it could make a difference with no crowd there, but I was actually disgusted at the performance. It was like, they are terrible, Hull. And we just made them look good. But second half, we shown more character and shown bits what we could do. But then I was left really frustrated again how we just let another simple goal go in. But at least we fought back. But we shouldn't ever be in that position where we need to fight back against them. We should just get the points. I know it's not always that simple, but we never make it that simple against those teams. That's why it's so frustrating. But we got back into it. We've kept the same distance away from the relegation zone, or we might have lost a point on them or something like that. So, but as long as we win Wednesday, I'll forget about it. But I wasn't happy.
Yeah, I think the important thing to remember, though, is that actually it seems as though the teams that have been battling relegation have kind of almost, I wouldn't be surprised if they've taken more points than the teams that are going for the playoff place, because Wigan have taken more points than anyone apart from Derby in 2020. Barnsley have been in pretty good form. Luton, you'd probably say as well. And even so, a side like Huddersfield that have been getting solid results, they're now in relegation zone. So I do think that a lot of the teams near the bottom are upping their game, and Hull, I think, probably a little bit better now. They've got a couple of their best centre-backs, which they didn't have in the second half of the season. So I would have some sympathy from that point of view. But of course, in terms of the goal conceded, we were sloppy in possession at times, so there is accountability from that point of
view. Yeah, I think you touch on that. Other teams in and around them, for example, Middlesbrough got an absolute hiding by Swansea, then went and turned over Stoke at their own place. I know obviously you've not got the fans there at the minute, and a lot of Stoke's home form is based on, they always get the crowd up and running, and they're always a raucous group. But yeah, you get the Warnock knock-on effect as well from that, and all of a sudden we're left looking over our shoulders a little bit. Especially with, like, Middlesbrough picking up points. Hull, I know we've kept the gap between them now, but Huddersfield, I think they kick off. Have they kicked off against Forest now today?
I think they just have, yeah.
So, I think we're left looking over our shoulders a little bit again, which isn't nice, but we're used to it at this point of the season.
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine us going down at this point. I think we've been on a very long, I think something like 1 defeat in 15, something like that. So I wouldn't be too worried about relegation, but I think it's maybe a little bit, it looks a bit tighter than we were maybe thinking a lot of the other teams have picked up.
Yeah. It's, we looked pretty safe for the whole season. There was a spell in like January where it was getting a bit too close for comfort. But it would just, that's why at least we got the point. I'm not too happy with it, but at least we got the point, because it'd be really horrible to be dragged into relegation battle now, because it's harder to drag yourself back away from it than just get out of it when you're already there, I think, at this stage of the season, because you'll start panicking. So we just need to make sure we get enough points just to get away as quick as we can, and then we can relax and hopefully enjoy the rest of the season.
Yeah, I mean, I think, again, you look at how the table would have looked had we have lost yesterday, and you put another 2 points onto Hull's total, knock one off us, and then all of a sudden you are looking at the next few fixtures and thinking, where are we going to get the points to be able to drag us away? Our only saving grace is that there's so many teams between us and the bottom three at the minute. Are they all going to be able to pick up enough results to overturn us should we continue our playing that way? Complete contrast to how we was against West Brom last week, where defensively we were solid, whereas yesterday within 15 minutes, 16 minutes, 2-0 down, and you're thinking, Sunday League football, really, defensively. I was lost for words. If it weren't for the fact it is Blues, I'd have turned it off in disgust.
mean, I think quite a big thing is you've got somebody like Michael Keefton-Bell, who's just sort of had quite a long-term injury. I mean, he might have made an appearance against Reading just before the lockdown, but he's still kind of coming back in. And we saw against West Brom that he's actually pretty, when he's not getting much of the ball, he does a pretty solid job of kind of anchoring that midfield and keeping things in check. But I think when you expect him to use the ball well, and have a lot of the ball, which will probably be more the case against Hull because they've got West Brom, then you're probably going to have more problems. Maybe especially with him not quite being at peak sharpness, if you like. Maybe there are one or two lapses there. And I think we saw that in the lead up to I think Hull's first chance.
Yeah, and I think you see the difference in the team when Bella came on at half time and Jude moved to the middle as well. I think it helped having an actual out and out wide man on the wing rather than a makeshift in Jude or last week Gardner who'd done the job admirably, but it's not his forte really. It's not where he's meant to be. Whereas Bella he's a natural, and Hull didn't know how to deal with him. Whereas the central, if we have someone who's usually in the middle out wide, they're always looking to drift in, and we was kind of vacant on that left side in the first half, especially with just Pedersen wandering off whenever he really wanted to and leaving us short at the back.
Yeah, it was really disappointing just how, like, as you say, against West Brom, we were so solid. And I was apart from a few moments, I was really confident that we'd keep them out. But then it was about 15 seconds and they were through on goal. And I'm sure we had kick-off. So like, I was just there watching it and I was like, what's happened? How did they throw on goal? But yeah, we just weren't at the races for ages yesterday. But I think they must have said something at half-time to actually like wake themselves up. But I'm glad they did.
Yeah.
I mean, just like to touch on the point about Bella's impact, because I think in the first half you saw, because of the issues that we've mentioned, sometimes Djukovic was actually sort of drifting out wide. And I think when you've got Djukovic and Hogan as a strike pairing, although they're different types of strikers, they probably do their best work inside the penalty area. Djukovic is best when he's kind of peeling off onto the back post, sitting on one of the weaker centre-backs and all that sort of thing. Hogan, you want him in and around the penalty box. So you don't really want either of them kind of drifting out wide. And I think with Bayer coming on, I was surprised actually. He kind of came on the left when I sort of thought of him as a kind of a classic right winger, but he did pretty well on the left actually, and put in one lovely left-footed cross for Crowley, even if he's naturally right. So yeah, really impressive second half contribution from Bayer.
Yeah, he was massive for us. He changed the game for me. We just had to get him on, and maybe I know Pep said he's been a bit cautious with him, but hopefully we can start getting him back into the starting 11 for the next few games because he's just so important to us since he's joined.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned Djukovic drifting out wide, and like you say, best in the middle. And your problem is as well is if you've got Djukovic as the one out on the wing, and Hogan's the only real goal scorer that's in and around the box. You know, our power is getting the ball into the box to the big target man, who either gets a header on goal or he knocks it down for someone else. He always causes a threat. Centre backs the size of, nowadays, they win everything in the air. They're not going to be fazed by having to mark Hogan, or if you've got Jude drifts in there from middle, they're not going to be bothered by that. We just play into their hands by doing that, really. And I think, yeah, like you say, Bella was just different class when he came on, and he has to start next game now. Has to. But yeah, moving on from that then, that's another thing we've seen over the past week or so, the rumour that Jude is due to be announced at Borussia Dortmund anytime now, though there is obviously contrasting reports that Bayern have joined the chase, as well as Chelsea again. But 15 million up front and rising to 25 is the rumour this morning. What's your take on that, Gab? What do you think?
Well, I imagine the club would have hoped, because I'd heard talk of around like £40 million fee, and so I think the club had probably hoped for a bigger fee. but maybe the lockdown has kind of scaled down the finances a little bit, and clubs aren't willing to take as big of a financial risk on Bellingham, and clearly the club maybe needs money that little bit more based on the issues that we've had over the last few years. So I can understand why the club have made the decision to sell him, and really it'd be interesting to see if they can sort of reinvest wisely, because I remember when Norwich got rid of Marcus Maddison in 2018, and then they reinvested really shrewdly with kind of a smart sort of recruitment setup, and all of a sudden they brought in 4 or 5 players who are kind of part of that title winning campaign. And I don't know if I necessarily have quite as much faith in the Blues recruitment team to do things the same way, but just hope that we use that money as wisely as possible.
Yeah, I agree. I think the fee obviously wasn't as high as we was all reading throughout the whole time, and it's still a shame to see Jude go, because I think it's a shame because he could be such an amazing player for us, but we also have to accept that money, it could change a team if we spend it wisely. It could push us up right to the top of the Championship, but as we say, as long as we use it wisely, which is like, is that going to happen? But as we say, I think lockdown could mean that prices for players aren't as high as they usually would be. Maybe we have to take what we can get, sort of thing. And also, maybe Dortmund wouldn't be willing to spend more because maybe they want actual quality now for that sort of price instead of potential. So yeah, it's a hard one, but maybe that's just why the transfer window this summer's going.
I think it's a good point you make about it being the way the market is post-COVID, so to speak, really. Obviously, it should all be in contrast. So whereas we could have sold him for 40 and bought 4 players for 10 million, we could sell him for 25 and get 4 players for 6.5, 7 million. So, that it's all in line, really. You get the same quality for your money. But like you say, it's interesting to read that the rumours were 40, 45. Dortmund are never known for spending that sort of money on anyone. Really, they're you pick up your frees and your bargains like Sancho and move them on for big bucks. I mean, even Erling Haaland was only 20 million, if that, for them. But where would you like him to go? Where do you think he'd hit the ground running straight away? Really?
Well, I think it looks like he's going to go to Dortmund, and I think that kind of makes sense in many ways, because I think Dortmund are more likely to give him an opportunity in the next 1 or 2 years, whereas I think at Manchester United looking at an opportunity in the next 4 or 5 years after various loan spells, and I don't necessarily know if that's what he needs. So in some ways, I'm glad that he's, because I think Manchester United is the glamour option for anyone born in England. But I'm glad that he's taken a clearer route, perhaps, to first team football. So pleased from that point of view, although possibly from United, from a selfish point of view, we might have got more money out of United.
Yeah, I think Dortmund could be the best move, and although we could get more money off United, I think it could still work in our favour, because depending on the salon fee, he's more likely to leave Dortmund than you would be likely to leave Manchester United, because that might be his next club, Manchester United, after Dortmund. Yeah. So he's quite likely to still come back to England and us get quite a nice chunk of that salon fee. So, and also I think it's great for his development, because you just see what they do for players over there in Dortmund. They give young players opportunities. So I think it'll be interesting to see how he does, but hopefully we still get a nice amount for him.
I'd love to know as well, just on that point, what the percentage sell-on fee is going to be, because I think it's perfectly possible that Bellingham could reach the real pinnacle of the game, and probably wouldn't be with Dortmund. It would be with a Manchester City or a PSG or something along those lines. So actually, if he's worth a massive amount of money in the next few years, then potentially, depending on what the sell-on value is, then or percentages, so that could be a really big aspect for the deal for him.
Yeah, you look at Sancho as the prime example at Dortmund, really, isn't he? With with the way they stole him on the cheap from Man City at the time, £7 million. I think they had to spend on him, and now they're looking, but even in today's market, 120 million. The price I've seen quoted for his move in the summer to wherever United is apparently the ideal destination. But if you take a 10%, even 10% of that, £12 billion, and put that onto the 25, there's your 35, 40 million straight away. But like you say, it'd be interesting to see what we've put in there. But yeah, where would you go after that then? So the summer, a big rebuild job's needed. You've got the money from Bellingham. Where do you invest that?
Well, for me, I think obviously we don't know what's going to happen with Gabriel Sutton, but we need a left-footed centre back. I think Mark Roberts I like as the right-sided centre back. Probably, I'm not quite sure about a Robertson-Dean pairing. I don't think they quite fit each other. I think they're both quite aggressive in nature, and they're both right. I think so. Need someone left-footed to kind of complement Roberts, in my opinion. Probably a strike partner for Djokovic, whether that's Scott Hogan or not. We could get him for 3.5 million in the summer. I think that might be his release clause. But someone who can kind of, whether or not they're quick, but someone who can run in behind and stretch defences with that kind of positive running, because I don't rate Djokovic as a lone striker. I think he's going to run beyond it, because otherwise you've not got the option to stretch defences. I think he's good playing back to goal, but you need someone stretching defences and getting on the end of his sort of half-bounds and flip-ons and things like that. So those are the two key positions, replacing or retaining Clark Salter and Scott Hogan. And then, of course, you're probably looking at another couple of left-sided players. There's Jefferson Montero, Jack Magoma, and Jude Bellingham all going to be gone, so probably as well.
Yeah, I think the key is, as we've said, Clark, Salter and Hogan. It would be great to keep hold of them. If we can't, then we need to find replacement for both of them. And then there's a few other positions where we need. I think we won't progress as high as we'd like to with Lee Camp in goal. He hasn't done a terrible job for us, but I don't think he's good enough. You know, because we need a goalkeeper that wins us some points, like I've seen last few years before this season. Darren Randolph at Middlesbrough and people like that. So, and we also need more wingers, because that's just, the depth there is scary at the minute. We haven't got them.
Yeah, I think I definitely agree on the point about the goalkeeper, the key area. I mean, I'd say Camp has actually done better than expected this season, and I like him as a person and all the rest of it. But I was surprised that we didn't upgrade that area in last summer. So I certainly think that's going to be a key priority.
Yeah, I mean, last summer was an interesting one when we bought in Ramos on loan from Real Madrid, and Camp then he hasn't even had a look in as a potential first choice keeper for us, and he said his intention is to go back to Real Madrid. So it's a strange one bringing him in, and like you said, Camp could have been replaced in the summer, really. But with him only extending till the end of this season, I think there's definitely going to be someone comes in. Although I do like Truman, I think he's got bags of potential, but is he ready for week in, week out Championship football is another debate. But we've got a lot of other youngsters coming through still. Bailey, Seddon on loan at Portsmouth at the minute. So
I like him, yeah.
And he can be the one who supports Pedersen at left back, wingers. But anyone that stands out for you guys that you'd like to see coming in the summer?
There's not really any names that stick out in my mind. So me saying that, yeah, we need those positions is all well and good, but I really can't think of many names at the minute. I mean, obviously in goal, people mention the likes of Joe Hart, and it'd be nice to see him back, but that's it depends what wages he'd be on. And would he come back still? Would he still like to see if he can try it in the Premier League? Because, but I just think the the wages could be a problem there. So, but there's other good goalkeepers out there. It'll be half the price, half the wage. So it's just about getting the right blend of players who aren't also expensive on wages and fees, but also they've got to make sure that they can do the job.
The other thing I'd say is there's a lad called Charlie Kirk at Crewe Alexandra, and he's a really good left-sided player, and loves to kind of get in and out post, and we'll finish on him. And I think he's a real talent, and he signed a new 2-year contract there, so it would require a fee. But I certainly think he's got potential in the Champions. He's high level.
Yeah, is that one of the routes you'd like to see the club go down? You know, there's been good players in the past from the lower leagues. Nick Powell was one of them at the time. Would you like to see the club dip into the lower leagues and take some of the talent from there and nurture them?
I think if we do go into the lower leagues, it has to be at the right age bracket, because I think one of the mistakes Ipswich made summer before last was they got a lot of players from sort of League One, but they weren't quite at the right age. So they're players who had kind of been in the lower leagues for much of their careers, and I wouldn't like us to sign that sort of player. But players who are kind of under the age of 23, been in the lower leagues for a little bit, but have got that potential to rise up the English pyramid. I think we could be a great sort of those sort of players. So, and yeah, Crewe got some fantastic young talent there, and I think a lot of clubs in the Championship should be looking that way to Bob Strasbourg.
Yeah, it'd be a nice thing to do if we could actually pick the right players out of them divisions, because then it'd be cheap and effective. But, I think a few wouldn't be a bad idea, especially even if they don't turn out to be the best. At least we'll have the depth there then. At least we'll be able to use them as squad players. So a few of them, yeah, that'd be fine. But I do think we might need to definitely push up the league and progress. Maybe see, there's a lot more free agents going around this summer than there seem to be in the last few years. So it'd be interesting to see if we can look in that market as well, because I do think there's some quite good players that make a big difference for us.
Yeah, the one standout I see on a free transfer, which has been mentioned previously, is Callum O'Hare, who was at Coventry, who obviously his simple miss ensured that we stayed in the FA Cup at one point. So it'd be good to bring him in. I think he's got the ties to Coventry, but he was a boyhood Blues fan, so he'd love to jump at the opportunity, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think as well he's a real talent, because Dan Crowley, he's very much a sort of number 10, but there's maybe some question marks, certainly at times in his career, about his kind of work rate. Maybe not quite so much fair this season, but it's probably not his sort of main strong point. But whereas with someone with like a hair season, he's very tenacious as well as having that technical talent, and he's probably going to support the press quite well. So if we do operate with a number 10 next season, I really would be seeing O'Hare in the side, because I think Villa have made that offering in the contract.
Yeah, I'd be quite happy with that signing as well, because although it's like, yeah, let's get Villa's rejects in, but I've seen him be able to do it in League One. He played well in the games that I've seen Coventry playing. I haven't seen a lot of them, so I'm not pretending to be an expert, but he has got something there, and he's young, and he's got time on his hands. And I do think we need to get more players like the Crowley mould to get the best out of Dan Crowley as well, because I personally think that he's a big asset for us going forward, because he's good with the ball at his feet. He likes the ball at his feet. So I think we need to complement him with a few more players of that mould.
Where do you see him, Dan? Do you see him as a number 10? Do you like him kind of coming off of the right? I mean, I don't think he had a spell where he sort of, because of Bayer's form, he kind of shifted onto the left, and I don't feel like that particularly suits him.
I think in the formation we've been playing this season, he's done fairly well on the right side, I think, especially when Colin was in better form. I don't think Colin's been as good attacking recently, but maybe that's what he's been asked to do. Maybe he's been asked to be more cautious, but him and Colin were definitely a good combination at the start of the season. But for me, I do think he's a number 10. But then that sort of means that we might have to fit him in as a number 10. it might mean we have to have a lone striker. So that might mean we have to then change Djukovic instead.
Well, one thing I was wondering about was like a 3-4-1-2 system. So like with kind of Bayer and Seddon as wing backs, and then Colin as the number 10, and then Djukovic and Hogan or another striker. I mean, that would compromise us in certain positions, but I do like the idea of a 3-4-1-2. I think work for our squad.
Yeah, I think personally, Crowley would be better in behind the forwards. Like Dan says, he's done definitely at the start of the season, especially he looked all right on the right hand side. He found himself out of the team a fair bit though, surprisingly for whatever reason. But last few games since we've come back from the lockdown, he's been brilliant. He's been our best player against West Brom, I feel. And yesterday when Bella came on, he again they complement each other in a certain way. Maybe that was the plan when we signed Villalba at the start of the year, was to a bit more creativity, give Crowley a free role, let him do what he wants, and for whatever reason that didn't work. Whether we can bring people in to make that possible in the summer, maybe that's something that Dong's looking at. He seems to be the one calling the shots.
Yeah, a handful of times there was a lot, especially at the start of the season. I thought Crowley and Villalba, when Villalba looked like he wanted to be here, was really good. It looked quite dangerous because they'd always be switching positions and they'd both be coming to feet, asking for the ball, dragging us forward. But as time went on, it looked quite clear that Villalba probably didn't want to be here. And I don't know whether that was when Paco Herrera left or any other reason, but I do think we need more players, as I said before, like Crowley, and how Villalba started the season with us, who can keep interchanging positions and drag us forward and be a threat. Because I think we're too easy to defend against for some teams. A lot of the time, they're like, right, if we can deal with Djukovic, we'll be fine. So I just hope we can be a bit more of a threat. Plan B, can we play on the floor a bit more? But we'll need a better squad for that.
I mean, I think that's a really important point as well. Like, what's the direction of our squad going to be in? And I think that's something we've got to figure out in terms of appointing the next manager, because do we want to rely on Djukovic as much next season? I still think he's incredibly good at what he does, and I still think he's a really big sort of asset to the team. But I also think that relying too much on him, especially like from deep with use of the ball from deep, is that going to be healthy? Because I think with Djukovic, if you're picking him, you're almost picking two players. It needs a strike partner which kind of compromises you in other areas. So what's going to happen? Is the next manager going to prioritise Djukovic and build a team around him, or is he going to maybe evolve the style a little bit further from Pickett's work and maybe use Djukovic as a plan B a bit more often? So I think that's going to be a really interesting facet of the next manager's job.
Yeah, especially that we've seen it with Redknapp was a victim of it. I feel the board wanting this fancy football signings this summer were made for that, but going right back to the Redknapp time, you can't. Redknapp's style of play was never what we wanted to play. So you've got that problem of Redknapp wants certain players, Dong wanted a certain style of play, and it never really gelled. You can't force a manager to play a style of play that they don't like or they're not used to. So as you say, it depends what manager we want to bring in and what they want to do, I feel, which brings us perfectly on to our next point. Rumours this morning, Mark Robins is the next name that the board have pulled out of the hat. How do you see that? Coventry played some brilliant football this season. Gab, does it work for you, Mark Robins?
Yeah, so Robins has kind of got Coventry playing this like 3-4-2-1 system. So they play kind of one up top, and they kind of play like four central midfielders. They've had Zane Westbrook and Jordan Chipley as kind of like two number 10s, and all the width has kind of come from their wing backs. And it's been a pretty progressive style of football. They've played some really good stuff. I've been down to St Andrews to watch them fair few times. So I like Mark Robbins, and I certainly wouldn't be against him. The interesting thing though is that as a manager, he's probably only really done well at Coventry. I think he did well in his first spell there and his second spell, but at Barnsley, at Scunthorpe, one, two other jobs like that, he hasn't necessarily cut it. And so it's only really his work at Coventry that makes you think he could be a really good Championship manager. But you can't take away from the job he's done this season.
So
Yeah,
what do you think, Dan?
I think he looks like a promising manager, but the thing that, although it's a more realistic target, I still can't see it happening because he's done so well at Coventry and he's actually got them into the same division as us. So would he want to throw that all away, or would he want to carry on and keep building with Coventry? At least try and keep them up this season. So I think it's an interesting one. I'd be quite surprised if he left because he's got minimal pressure on him, I'd imagine, at Coventry. Like now that they're up here, they might be one of the plucky underdogs. Whereas if he comes to Blues, he hasn't got that affiliation with the crowd as he has with their crowd. So we'd be probably expecting of him. Whereas they will be like, they'll probably just be happy to be back in the Championship.
I agree with that, but I also think that Blues have got a much better squad than Coventry. Personally, I think Robbins did really well to sort of develop players that have spent a lot of their careers in the lower divisions last season. Whereas I think for us, quite a few players that a lot of Championship clubs would envy. I think there's bits and pieces of a top 10 Championship side. I like the fullbacks we've got. I mean, Mark Roberts, I think, is probably a very good Championship player. I like Sunjic. I feel like there's another year of development in him. Got the Bellingham money. Jukovic is an asset at Championship level. Bayer, of course. So I think we've got a lot of Crowley as well. And so I think there's a lot of pieces there that makes you think, I think a manager like Mark Robbins, who's worked in League One a lot of the time, would be interested in working with. So I do think from that point of view, he could be an attraction to him.
It's interesting to say that, as you say, he's brought Coventry up. There's no expectations on them this year. Realistically, they shouldn't have been in that position to walk through League One the way they did. So you've got to give him credit for that. But I feel the next manager has got to be on board, and the board have got to give the next manager time and say, to a certain extent, they've got to give him the freedom to make his own signings, because this next season now is going to be vitally important. Stabilise the club, and we've got to start looking forward, not over our shoulders, which to a certain extent we still are this season yet again. We should be a team that's looking up at the top six and thinking, how can we break into that now? And
the one thing I would say is that although technically we are in some relegation danger, I think the squad we have, and partly through work, I think it feels closer to a side that's kind of pushing top 10 playoffs rather than looking over our shoulder. And I feel like there's a group of players now that I think you could argue it's our best squad since we've been in the Championship, you could say, maybe since the Houghton season, in terms of individual sort of quality. And I think there's a lot of potential there that Patek has kind of unleashed, and I just think we need a manager that can kind of put those pieces together. But yeah, I don't think we'll be looking over our shoulders next season. I think we've got the calibre of player to progress up the division, I hope. So.
Yeah, I think the right manager has to be appointed. It has to suit what the club want to do. Whether they're going to let the manager bring whatever style he wants to do, and just hope that he'll be successful like that, or if they want someone to play a bit more of a progressive attacking style, they have to appoint someone that will be happy to do that. But they also need to be allowed to bring in players that they probably think will be able to play that as well. Otherwise, we'll probably be in the same situation as we was this year, feeling that the head coach is just doing what he's told to do, and he's probably got a hand tied behind his back.
I think the key thing as well with managers or head coaches is they've got to be comfortable working in the setting that's been agreed. So you mentioned Redknapp. He wasn't comfortable with that kind of dispute with the owners. There are certain types of players that he wanted that he wasn't getting. And similarly, like sometimes you can get a head coach that does just want to coach the players he has on the field and maybe suffers from that lack of kind of dominance from a higher position. So the two pieces, the head coach, the footballing side and the off-field side, they've got to sort of have that communication and mutual sort of company. Like, so, that's going to be really important for us as well.
Absolutely, and I just want to touch back on the point you made as well previously, discussing Mark Robins, where he's only really made it work at Coventry, similar to the sense of the prime example could be Eddie Howe, where Bournemouth, he stormed it when he first took over, went to Burnley, didn't work out for him, and they back at Bournemouth took him to the Premier League. So sometimes you find that a manager or a head coach just click at a certain club, and I think the fans now, I think we're ready for a manager who's in it for the long run, and hopefully whoever that is, the board will appoint the correct person, should I say. But yeah, fingers crossed. But anyway, lads, that's all we've really got time for today. But thank you for joining me anyway. You can listen to us, as I said, on Spotify, Apple Music, and on YouTube every Monday. Join us on Twitter for a debate as well, at Blues Focus Pod. Send us your questions. We can discuss those again next week. And yeah, thanks for joining me, lads.